We'll make sure that that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, great.
All
We
right.
noted.
It's been noted. And next on the agenda. Okay. Okay. Got a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Support. Meraki.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll move on to next order of business. Madam Clerk?
Moving to page 2, item D1 under new business, an update regarding the status of the criminal justice complex.
Noticed James Heath has joined us again today, so good to see you again. James, would you give us an update? And I know we'll get to the rest of your group in a few minutes, but I know I had some questions, and maybe you can tell us where we're at on the timeline. You might answer some of those questions before we even get into them.
Sure, and so I assume that that's what you want to talk about, so I made my, I'm prepared to answer all of your easy questions. I'll take your hard ones under advisement. James Heath, Wayne County Corporation Counsel. Thank you for being here. I also have Victoria Ennis Edwards, who is here, and she's going to be giving a brief update, but I have a sense that most of our discussion will be around kind of where the action is right now with respect to the CJC project, and that's turnover. So I want to give you a little bit of an update. We did submit a construction progress report that is in writing. As you imagine, as you get kind of to the end of a project such as this, the construction update slows down because we're really completely inside of the building, and we're making kind of final touches. A lot of important work still yet to be done, but I know that commissioners had scheduled earlier this week, I believe, a tour that did not go. I know there were some cancellations, and I think there's going to be one scheduled for mid-April. And so look forward to you all being able to put eyes on the things that are contained in the report. But with respect to our timeline, and really the most important date for our purposes today is what will end up being our turnover date. And just, I know it's been several years since the contract has been reviewed with you all, but the turnover date is the date that starts the clock for the county to move technically out of the buildings that we presently occupy, Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, the jails that have been transferred over. It is after that 6-month time period, if the county is not out of those facilities within that 6-month time period, that there is a penalty that accrues in rough $500,000 monthly. And so that is that turnover date is so very important. Turnover is not, it has been somewhat of a moving target, because it's not just when Rock gives us the keys and says, hey, the building is yours. We have to agree. And what do we have to agree to? Rock has to provide notice that the building is substantially complete and that it can be occupied for its intended purposes. The building has to be able to do what it is supposed to do. Our end users have to be able to operate out of it before we can agree to accept turnover. Rock has to have approvals for the occupation of it. They must complete commissioning of all security systems, and specifically those systems within secure areas. So, you know, it's not just a jail. We have a administrative building. We have a facilities maintenance building, courthouse, and all those things. But the thing that the most complicated piece of that is our ADF, which has secure issues. So all of our security functions need to be stabilized and set, ready to go before we can accept turnover. those things that we have to agree upon, Rock will give us formal notification. The county has a pretty short window in which to respond formally. Yes, Rock, you have turned over the building. We believe these things are complete and we have accepted turnover, and there is a meeting of the minds. The latest formal date that we have been given for turnover by Rock, and that has been several months now, has been May 30th. There is not anything magical about that May 30th date. That's the guide that Rock is shooting towards to be able to have turnover complete. The position of the county, my position, has been that that is just a guide, that we will have to be satisfied that all of the work that needs to be done is completed. And that is where our partner CGL, who is our owner's representative, playing a very large role in advising us as to whether all of those things are complete. Our end users are walking through the building on a regular basis, doing what we affectionately refer to as punch list review. So they're walking the halls, looking at, are things in place the way they should be? Are there issues that need to be fixed? And they're doing that in conjunction with our owner's representative and our general transition teams. We will not know, quite frankly, until we get closer to the May 30th date, whether that's going to be a real date that will actually trigger turnover because the county is willing to accept. To some extent, it's kind of like, we are going to be guided by the facts on the ground, the construction facts, before we will accept turnover. And so we are telling our transition teams, because as you can imagine, it is an awesome ramp up process for them to say, okay, now we're going to be moving starting on X day. And it is disruptive to their normal everyday processes because they are not going to stop doing the things they have to do on a regular basis. And so as soon as I get new information from Rock, and as we internally review the information that we're getting from Rock, and we have our own opinions about, how long it will actually take to do things, we communicate that to our end users. So the date that I'm giving you now has been the last marker that Rock has given us, but we are speaking with them on a regular basis to discuss, how the facts on the ground correspond with what an actual turnover date is. And so as we get new information, we certainly will provide it to you.
Are we looking at, do we have an idea of how close we are to the May 30th date? How many outstanding items do you have right now that are, and I don't know if you're prepared today to go through all those or tell us exactly where what we're waiting on them to complete.
So I don't have a list that I can provide to you today, Mr. Chairman. What I will tell you, though, is that we have provided, and CGL has provided to us, and we have provided to Rock. These are the items that we see that need to be completed. There are items, for instance, and I'll put them in several categories, items that everyone knows that need to be done, for instance. There are other items that we are discovering as we walk through, and we are making Rock aware. We went, on a punch list walkthrough. We have questions about this aspect of construction, for instance, and Rock is responding to that. And then there are other items, frankly, that we are, I hesitate to say dispute, but we are discussing with Rock and making sure that they live up to the standard that that the project requires. And so that list is fluid, but as to the county and the developer, we are, for the most part, reading from the same hymnal and discussing the same things and working out plans for how and when they can be completed. Some have certain lead times that Rock is making us aware of. and others were just kind of coming to a meeting of the minds. One of the things that we I want to be very careful about from the county side is that, once turnover happens, our end users are going to be operating and preparing to operate out of the facility. And so I want to make sure that there are no outstanding construction things. There are small items that can be completed once you're in the building, but we want to make sure that the transition of our end users is not disrupted by ongoing construction at all. And so that's the conversation that we are continuing to have, Commissioner.
What is being done right now with furniture and fixtures that are coming in? Because where are they being stored? Or they're not going into the facility yet, right?
Some are being installed. Some are going in that are not disruptive of construction. And so on a lot of the FF&E items, and I know you hear that term often, a lot of those are some of the contracts that this commission helped us with Source Blue and others to get the ball rolling on. Some of those things are literally rolling in as we speak. I think Tori can give an update on that when she speaks. Things that can be installed are being installed as we go along. And so that process has been helpful in there. We were concerned, as you know, about what we thought might be considerable lead times in getting some of those items in. I will knock on the wooden podium here and tell you that we, with your help, we've been meeting those timelines, and we do not anticipate that will be a problem whatsoever with us occupying and moving into the building when it's set to go.
So the May 30th date, you're saying that we will not accept that currently based on what we're seeing? Do you think we're going to make that 30th?
I guess this is the way I'll put it. It's not a function of accepting a date.
Mhm.
It's a function of accepting a condition of the building.
Right.
And what I'm saying is I can't tell you today that what things will be done by May 30th. That is the last official date that ROC has given us. But what I have said to them and what they understand is that is a guidepost as to when they expect. What the important thing is all of the work to be completed. And we will know as we get closer to May 30th whether the work is actually done. It's to some extent, it's kind of like, Easter dinner is going to be served at 6 p.m. No matter how done the duck is, right? I mean, we're not going to be guided by 6 p.m. We're going to be guided by the temperature of the bird. And so we're going to be guided by the conditions on the ground because that is what will give the county, number one, what we bargained for. Number two, that is what will give our end users the best opportunity to be successful in terms of our transition. And so ROC gives me the date. It's a serious date. I have to take it seriously. But I just want to be honest with the commission about what we're going to base our decision of accepting turnover on. And that's the conditions and not the calendar.
If ROC says it's substantially complete and there's this date, they hold by the date, how's any dispute going to be resolved?
So if there is a dispute as to turnover where the developer says, turnover is ready, you have to accept it, and we say no, per the terms of the contract, we would not accept it, that would be something that would go to arbitration.
Be right with you. I think that's all I have right at the moment. The $500,000 per month charge for the buildings that they're getting, that is where would that funding come from if we had to pay that?
Without having the budget director here, I'd tell you it'll come out of our probably our general fund. But I just want to be clear about what that is. That is after turnover, after the county has accepted turnover, if we extend in our existing facilities beyond the 6-month time period, that is where that penalty kicks in. So that would be a penalty that is a result of the county not meeting its obligation. We are steps away from that, because what we're discussing right now is when that turnover happens. And to your point, you and I have discussed the CJC for several years now. I can see your wheels turning. That is why it is so important for us to accept turnover per the terms of the agreement, per the terms of what is manageable for the county, because we don't in any way, and I do not expect, as I stand before you and God today, that we will have a problem with meeting our obligation once turnover happens. But the best way for me to ensure that is to ensure that the turnover date is, as I said, guided by the facts on the ground, the construction progress that actually exists, and nothing more than that.
Oh, last question I have is the right to time is the movers that we contracted with. I believe I think there was more than one company that the commission approved. And what's happening with them when they're not moving things in? I mean,
So,
preparation.
you're referring to Oneida. They are our movers, and thank you for the commission's approval of that contract. There is a whole lot of work that they are doing right now in working with our end users to plan for the move. I think probably the actually picking up boxes, putting it over at the new facility is probably the simplest part of what they're doing. Was certainly not the initial. It's working with the end users in their current locations, determining what goes, determining where things need to go. And they are an integral part of the transition process. And that's why we came to you as early as we did for approval of that contract. So I assure you that they are not sitting idly by at any point. They are, as we are negotiating or discussing with ROC, they are working with our end users so that when turnover date does occur, the county's ready to move and operate on the plan that our transition team has developed.
Go to recognize Commissioner Kenlock.
Yes, I agree with you. What's most important is that the facility and the complex is ready for us to begin that turnover timeline. So the date is not something that I'm holding fast to. It has to be an eyes and boots on the ground sort of perspective in determining whether or not there is that the facility is substantially, ready for turnover because of that 6-month clock and because of what lies on the other side of the 6-month contract. Now, you mentioned arbitration, and if there's a disagreement, isn't there an architect determination as part of that turnover decision as well? Is there an architect who's advising either the county or Bedrock or both? And how was that architect of sort selected?
HOK is the architect of record. They are the designer of the project. They are under contract with Bedrock, and we are a third-party beneficiary to their agreement. HOK has certain requirements with respect to signing off on the facility at turnover and the like. One of the things that's important about the relationship with HOK, and I'm glad you mentioned it, is that after turnover, there comes a point in which the county's recourse for problems shifts away from Bedrock, shifts to the architect. And so there are real consequences to turnover. And that is why we are taking that process very seriously. But to have the sort of commissioning, to have the sort of occupation approvals, certainly the architect, HOK, plays a large role in that. And so you're correct, Commissioner.
So you mentioned that the punch list, I think you said that's fluid, because as you move around, you identifying certain things that it needs to be addressed. From a percentage standpoint, no, you can't get us a list of all the unfinished issues. But from just a percentage standpoint, how much of a percentage would you determine, or would you say is close to that appropriate time when they can say turnover is appropriate?
I'm thinking the best way to give you an answer without answering your question, so give me a second. So this is what I'll say, Commissioner, because I want to be safe here, and I want to be accurate, and I want to make sure I don't say anything that damages our discussions with Bedrock. When our end users walk through the facility, and you specifically mentioned punch list, the sort of things that they are discovering are the sort of things that laypersons like us would discover. Those are not the issues which are of real dispute or of real consequence with the developer. And so the sort of things that we're talking about, an example might be how conduit is positioned within the building in our secure areas. And so that's something that we have to look at very closely. We are in certain areas of the facility, we are looking at sound attenuation issues that will make it just easier for our people to, in a gym or in a housing unit, to operate. And so those aren't really the sort of punch list items that our end users are discovering. What I will tell you is that, I mean, as a percentage, you know, we're getting close. We're getting close, but and I think that we are in the neighborhood, we believe, within the range that Rock is discussing. I'm not talking a whole, I wouldn't speculate, but I don't think we're talking a much longer time period, but we just do want to be very, very careful before we'll accept her.
Okay, so the structure, is the structure complete? Can we say substantial, any construction that is still going on, is that what is complete? Also, the garage, and there were some outstanding issues, environmental testing, some questions as it relates to cost associated with, I guess, the garage and some other environmental questions, and I hadn't heard those.
Yeah, so excellent question. So it looks like a jail. It looks like a courthouse. It looks like
I've driven over there.
Yeah, it's there. We're not talking about major construction issues, and so we're internal. When we talk about most of our environmental stuff, the discussions regarding environmental things have to do with our primarily our offsite lots, which are still being constructed. You know, one of the things that happened at the end of last season, there comes a point where it just gets too cold to pour asphalt, and so they put off that until the spring, now that we're here, and that process is going to begin, but there's always dirt that has to be taken away, has to be tested and the like, and we are having conversations with Bedrock about exactly the nature of stuff that's been hauled away, whether it's construction related or whether it's an environmental issue. And so we're really just arguing about financial responsibility in that regard, not necessarily something that's going to prevent turnover or prevent the use of the facilities.
So those conversations associated with costs and who's liable for it will continue after potentially turnover, because there's still work being done, still things being, I guess, determined.
I certainly have a hope that at one point we'll be able to stop negotiating about those issues, but they certainly are ongoing right now, and they don't have an effect on turnover. Turnover is really a function of construction, and the issues that you raise are a function of contract negotiation and contract discussions.
Is that all you have? All right, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to the arbitration, I'm still a little confused on this. I'm sure it won't get to this point, but if it got to this point, would it go into like a court type thing?
I'm sorry.
And would it be accelerated? If it
Yeah.
was some kind of judgment like that, so we didn't have to wait like months to hear any decisions?
So, excellent question. The contract, the development agreement that you approved back in the summer of 2018 contained an arbitration schedule and parameters for how the parties would engage in arbitration. It does contemplate a swift process that does not hinder construction, and the like. I mean, in some instances, there are projects where in the middle of a project, you have to arbitrate issues, and we have gotten, throughout this process without having to do so. Quite frankly, I hesitate to even to mention it but you did ask about what if, but we have worked collaboratively with the developer on this. I believe that they have the same goals that we have to give the citizens of Wayne County, indeed this entire region, state-of-the-art facility, one that we will all be proud of and will be long-lasting for us. And when you have a project of, rising to, $750 million, are there issues that you work through? Yes. But we have worked very, very well with them so far. We continue to do so. I'm happy that they have been partners with us, and I have every expectation that we will continue along those paths without the formal requirements that the
Yeah,
contract
and I
lays
do
out.
too. I just wanted to make sure that something was set up that it would happen quickly and not drag this out while we're waiting for the complex to open. Okay,
Absolutely,
thank you.
absolutely.
Commissioner Baydun?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Keith, I want to go back to that 500,000 a month penalty. So the way I understood this, after the 6-month period expires, that's when the penalty kicks in, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if we don't move within the 6 months period, every month we pay 500,000.
Yes, sir.
And this applies to all the county facilities that we are supposed to vacate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You anticipate that we're going to get to that point?
No, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would you like any other questions by commissioners at the moment? If there's not, okay, I'll move on to let you go ahead and.
Yeah, I just want to say
James.
to tail into to your point, Commissioner Baydun. The reason why, quite frankly, is because of the work that our end users have been doing along the way. What I've said to them is it is not your responsibility to build the CJC. It is your responsibility to prepare to move into the new CJC. And we've split our efforts with our consultant, CGL. We have a construction side, we have a transition side. And they have been working behind the scenes along with our end users. And the reason we are going to be successful is because of the work that they invest in. By they, I mean our county employees who are set to move in. And so I am confident. And as long as we do our job about making sure the requirements of turnover are set, I have every belief that they are going to do theirs in being ready to move in. Commissioner Kinloch, you mentioned, well, we discussed a little bit about parking lots. And as you all who were at the State of the County heard, the county executive did announce that there would be free parking for our employees who were who were going to be at the CJC. We have a robust parking team that has been working to ensure that we have the most advantageous parking. Number one, that we have enough parking. Number two, that it's efficient and meets the needs of our employees. We are still engaged in that process. I appreciate Chairwoman Bell for allowing us to appropriate Terrence Adams to be on our parking committee. He adds quite a bit to our discussions. There's going to be more to come, but that was, I know, a hurdle that the commission was very much interested in, and we certainly heard you loud and clear in making that determination about free parking. So thank you for your suggestions in that regard.
Commissioner, go ahead.
I know we had got an email regarding change order. Are you expecting any change orders? Or I know that was re-impaneled. Will
Yeah, so we, as you recall, we, the commission approved initially via resolution, a change order panel that could handle changes to the CJC. After discussing with Commission Counsel and Chair Bell, we were all agreement that because it changed the requirements of the procurement ordinance, that an ordinance was more appropriate to make that change. And so you later adopted an ordinance change which mirrored the initial resolution. There are some issues that we have to look at and will bring before the change order panel. So there were 3 members appointed by the legislative side and 3 by the executive. And so we are going to have to get together and go over a few items soon because, there are changes that we continue to evaluate with respect to the facility. As you know, the design of this took place, years ago. And so as our end users review, as we look at things, there are some changes that we look at and say, we'd like to alter this or we'd like to alter that, which are not part of the terms of the agreement. And so the commission, through the delegated authority that it gave to the change order panel, and sometimes to the full board, depending on the amounts, will have to weigh in on those. So there'll be more to come on that, Commissioner Kinloch.
No other commissioners at this time. James, do you want to introduce everyone and have them do their part of the presentation?
Tori, do you have anything you'd like to?
Through the chair, Victoria Ennis Edwards. I'm the director of Wayne County's Human Relations and Business Inclusion Division, specifically working with the FF&E, our furniture and fixture. You started off with that, ensuring that we have inclusion efforts and we meet our goals. A lot of areas we've exceeded our goals. Again, you hear very similar numbers. Right now, the spend on this project, we're tracking at 54% of the total budget has been spent with Wayne County businesses. So that's huge. Again, we're looking at between 35 and 36%. You get like 3.1 here and there every month when we're talking about our labor. We have Wayne County residents working on this, and we're looking at approximately 8% of women and minority-owned businesses with the total spend of the county are on this project. So that's something to be very proud of. Continuing that effort is a layered effort. For example, pieces that are going in, you talk about, are we installing? Even as simple as we're talking about the move. The move, as the team looks at it and drills down, how are we going to be efficient? How are we going to help the end users? Sometimes we'll look up and say, hey, we need something else. Oneida has been granted the contract, but they're also gracious enough that they are looking at what the needs are and looking at where they can work with some of our smaller businesses. You can think all you need is A through B, and then you look up and you need a B+ or a C, because the move is not as simple as when we could get those wonderful packing boxes from you all, slide everything in and move. So we have an additional layer of efforts happening right now through the move with other items that are coming. We are almost at the end of FF&E. I thought we'd never say that, but it's a good thing because it's been a very, very inclusive process. We're getting to the part, you're looking at shelving, you're looking at racking. For example, the gun lockers are in when we talk about specialty items. So those are the things that appropriately can be put into the box, as I like to call the building. And that is happening in a cadence as it gets completed. For example, you would never want to throw in all the shelving and you haven't finished all the walls or the sprinklers aren't in. So understanding this, all the items for FF&E are coming in. Some stuff has to come in for a moment and a holding. When you asked where to the warehouse, then it's coming in. But we are on track and I'm very excited. We were a little, I can't say nervous. I think everybody since 2020 with the supplier demands and those long lags, we're all a little prayerful to make sure all of the items are coming in. So areas where we forecasted a long lag, we have been pleasantly surprised and grateful that we don't have those long lags. So let me not jinx it and knock on wood right now that we don't have some of the last things, but still, we know there have been a lot of issues with that. So right now for FF&E, we are trending wonderfully. We don't see a lot of major hiccups. In fact, I see the FF&E is kind of the glitter and rainbows right now. We always feel good about it and we're going to continue to do so. So that will probably be completed, I'd say in the next 3-4 weeks as far as anything going out on the streets, and then the items coming in might be a little bit later just because we have to get them in, but we're tracking very well.
I would want to personally thank you for what you've done, the way you've taken control of this, and that really made it work for Wayne County residents, and having them be able to benefit from this major project that the county's probably the biggest project in 20, 30 years, if not more. But anyway, thank you very much. I don't know if any members have questions for Victoria. Anyone? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wayne, would you want to wait until the finish of the presentation and then it's up to you. If you want to. Okay. Carter, did you want to? Nothing? Anyone else? James? Okay.
We've been working very closely with the city of Detroit on sidewalk, streetscape improvements in the area around our parking lots to make as safe of an environment and for our employees who are going to be in public. We're going to be walking to and fro. Also includes, Commissioner Kinloch, with your help, changes to DDOT routes and schedules to accommodate the facility. And so just wanted to make the commission aware that we are making progress along those lines as well.
How long of a walk would the employees have that are wanting, or even visitors have to get the DDOT bus?
1,600 feet.
Oh, great.
1,600 feet from the farthest parking lots
Okay.
to the facility, just by way of, I believe, closer than the Guardian to First Street is the distance. And so not bad, but we want to, begin the process of improving the area for those who are going to be walking to and fro.
Great, thank you.
That concludes our presentation right now. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd hang on just for a minute, I suspect we might have, Dwayne might have a question about something. Oh, by the way, I'd heard a rumor that James offset the cost of the parking for the employees. We're going to double or triple the charge for attorneys over there.
Thanks.
So, just
Thank
kidding.
you, sir.
That'll get me in
Appreciate
trouble.
that. Thank you. Dwayne Seals, Deputy Chief Clerk. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak before this honorable committee at this time. I also have the team, our transition team here. Would you like to step up and introduce yourself too as well?
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Neal. I serve on Wayne County Clerk's executive team, and I am the project manager for the CJC Transition Project.
Very good.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Gilbert. I'm the department administrator for Frank Murphy Hall, Wayne County Clerk's Office.
Good afternoon, Dorian Ty, Special Assistant to the Clerk.
Another Dwayne?
Oh, Dorian.
Just, sorry.
Thank you. The reason we're here today is it's about the CJC Center. We have a number of times spoken with Mr. Heath as well as his team, really explaining the inadequate spacing of the CJC. I don't know how a nice way to put this, but the space is just not sufficient for the clerk. One of the biggest things that I want to point out is that the Wayne County Clerk does not have an office space in the CJC. She had one. They decided that there should be a media room put into the clerk's facilities. So they took her office out and put a media center there. We have been discussing that a number of times, saying that the clerk is going to have approximately maybe 100 employees over there. She's going to need a place to put her hat. She can't walk around and direct her staff carrying her coat and her shoes in her hand. So we've mentioned that a few times to Mr. Heath. And I guess pretty much it's been flatlined. We haven't heard anything further about it. But going as far as space-wise, we're going to talk about a number of things, though. One is for the space itself for the employees. The space is actually smaller for the employees to work. As far as boxes or keeping files, which is the clerk's statutory duty, there's no room for the boxes. In fact, because of that, it's brought up a host of issues such as RFP proposals, looking to move files elsewhere outside the clerk's purview. The biggest thing we found too while we were in the process was we noticed that you'll be hearing about this in the future. There are a number of files over the HQ building. I mean, the whole building's filled with files over there that the clerk was not aware of. Unsecured personnel files, security, social security numbers, what have you. But we'll talk about that later, but we'll go back to the CJC. As far as the spacing, we don't have room for our copiers, obviously. We've talked to the CJC Center transition team about it. They informed us that they'll be able to correct the problem after we move in. And we know how that is. If a problem exists before you move in, more than likely that problem will exist after you move in. And we want to bring this to your attention. I think we should have probably came earlier. We thought we were going to work with the transition team, the county, and hopefully that we would get some of these problems taken care of. But at this point, we're in the ninth inning here. We're getting ready to move in. As he mentioned, we're ready to walk through the door. And the clerk is not able to handle or not able to do her perform her statutory duties under the space that she's working under. And we're bringing this to your body to let you know that there is an issue. And we just need to kind of start pointing that out, that this is not something that's going to be sufficient for the citizens of Wayne County, as well as the staff to work in.
Would you provide us a list of the items that you're talking about, and then we'll ask Mr. Heath. James, I don't know if you want to address them now or not, any of those that you want to address right now? Because I think there were, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was anticipation that there was going to be a lot of scanning of documents, files that were going to be unnecessary to be in boxes, and I don't know if that's part of what we're talking about.
So number one, I thank the clerk, thank Dwayne, not only for his comments today, but frankly for the work that his whole team has been engaged in. When I talk about the transition team and the help that we've gotten, I count them in that number. And so we've done some good work together to get us to this point, and I think we'll continue to do that. So I just want to publicly say that. The issues that Mr. Seals raised are not new ones. I'm aware of the fact that the clerk would like another office in the new CJC. A decision was made that about how we needed to use space with respect to all of our end users, and I am 100% aware of the clerk's dissatisfaction about the decision about another office for her. Were I in a position to expand the walls of the facility today, that might be a different question. We are trying to make the best, most efficient use for the entire set of end users and county folks in our facility. And Mr. Seals and the clerk would not be the only ones who have some level of dissatisfaction. What I will tell you is that we continue to try to work with our end users in solving those issues. Paul Bruno is here, and he may have he will tell you about the process that we've been engaged in as well with the prosecutor. And so I thank our end users for working with us, And we try to do what we can within reason to accommodate the needs of everyone. You're correct, and Mr. Seals is correct, in that this facility was not designed for a whole lot of paper to be stored in the facility. And so we are making progress in that regard on two fronts. With respect to, I mentioned Mr. Bruno and the prosecutor's office. Number one, they have gone to, we have a contract for them to go to a digitized system so that prosecutors will have files, imagine an iPad type of situation that they can operate from. That's just the way the prosecutors are going to be operating into the future instead of I remember when I was in the prosecutor's office as an APA, bankers boxes full of documents and files and the like. The CJC is not designed to operate that way. They have a contract which they are using to digitize their records, and so that we can operate as a 21st century prosecutor's office and not as they would have done in 1980. And so I'm appreciative of their efforts in that regard. There has been an effort because we realize that we need a solution digitization of records. That's even a concept which is bubbled up from this commission as well for the entire county, as well as for the end users who are going to be moving into the facility, because everyone has records, sheriff, HHVS, everyone. Mr. Seals is correct. There are discussions occurring with the clerk's office about how we maintain the records that need to be maintained, understanding the space that exists, and some of it, quite frankly, involves litigation that went back prior to at least all of the commissioners here in this room, and certainly this current county executive. And so, yes, there are records stored at HQ, and we are trying to figure out how we manage that and how the county manages that. And I lose the collective we in that regard. And it does have implications for the CJC. And I think that we all have to be serious about that discussion and figuring out the problem. I do not think that we face a problem too large for us collectively to solve. And I'm encouraged and thankful that the clerk continues to be willing to talk about it with us. And that's about all I can say at this point.
Question that I have that's been rolling around my head is that when were you made aware of these issues that they had with the lack of space and lack of space?
The clerk's office, like all of our transition teams, I think they have been consistent with addressing concerns with us as they become aware. And so I'm not here telling you that the clerk is raising something in the 11th hour. I do have some 11th hour concerns that are raised by certain end users that we address. The concern with, so for instance, Mr. Seals mentions the issue with the office space for Madam Clerk. That's a conversation that, a decision and conversation that we began having even when Judge Kaufman was here working on that project. And so in no way am I implying late minute notifications by the clerk. What I am saying is that there are limitations, laws of physics that are a reality for us. And within that, I think we should try to work it out. The copier machines, for instance, there are existing copier machines of a particular size that are functional for the clerk's office. They work with Third Circuit Court in that regard. They raised an issue, which is a completely legitimate issue. CGL is presently working with the clerk's office as well as the court to craft a solution, one that we hope will allow them to operate in the way that they can, perhaps somewhat differently than they operate today. but one that will allow them to do what they need to do. And so we are a partner in those discussions, and we will continue to do so.
Also, you mentioned, and Dwayne mentioned something about the HQ maybe not being secure. Is that a concern that we should have about it not being secure with the records that are?
No, that's,
placed there?
and perhaps I didn't hear the part about it not being secure. The administration, we do not have a problem with the security of HQ. And Michael is here if he wants to give you a little bit of a background about how things are secured there. But that is not a concern that the administration has whatsoever. Michael, do you want to say anything? If I can, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Michael L., Deputy Director of Capital Development Building Administration, and through the chair. So HQ is basically a offsite location where we have a lot of files and boxes, and there's only a select few people that have keys to the building, number one. Number two, when you enter the building, the files that Mr. Seals is referring to are locked behind cage and key. So they're behind cages and an 8-foot fence. I don't even have access to get in there. So we're constantly maintaining chain of custody there. The sheriffs also have their internal affairs. We don't even go in there. We can't go in there without them being present. So when Mr. Seals and his team came and visited the site a couple weeks back, they had to get M&B, I think it was Lynn Turner, who escorted them through the building. So I'm just a little kind of at all at this point on the non-security of the building, so.
Can I jump in?
Thank you. Dwayne?
To the chair, I don't want to minimize the situation in HQ. I'm not here to discuss that. I think it's serious. The clerk sent a letter over to the CEO's office, explaining the situation in HQ. She will also send a letter to this body as well. It's a serious situation. There's personnel files. There's benefit files. There's the commission files there. Every record you have that you've talked about done is just sitting there. Go over and take a look. You believe this is secure? Yeah, there is a fence. Walk around the other side, you can walk over the fence. The holes in the gates are this big. I can fit through the hole of the gate. It's not. In fact, the clerk was not even aware these boxes were over there. We're not talking about 300 or 400 boxes. We're talking about thousands of boxes, 20, 30,000 boxes, probably 2 semi-truckloads. So it's a very serious situation there, but I'm not here to discuss that, but I will point that out to you. We're not trying to minimize this at all. This is a very serious, those files are unsecured, unmanaged, unwatched, uninventoried, and so forth. So we'll send pictures over. We have a number of pictures. If you'd like to see pictures of that area, I encourage you to take a look at that area. Those are your personal records that are there too. Your social security numbers, your birthdays, your family information is there. It is not a secured area. As he mentioned, it's HQ, it's in the middle of the DPW facilities. There's trucks there, people coming in and out all the time. It's not a secure area. So I want to go back to the situation as far as the clerk office. He's an elected official. It did come up when Deputy CEO Hoffman was here. I think there was an issue why he felt he would go into the clerk's space, as limited as it was, to take away her office and put in a media press room. Now the clerk has spoke with the sheriff. He said, "No, I never asked. I don't want a press room there." She spoke with the prosecuting attorney, and she also said that no, the press room. I need a press room, but I didn't ask for it to be inside the clerk's office. You have to walk through the clerk's office to go in this press room. Now, you can minimize the situation of saying the clerk, sorry, we're all cramped, we all need space. But here, I think each elected official here has an office. Someone walks into your building and take part of your office and says, too bad, we're all cramped. That's a serious situation there. The Wayne County Clerk has a statutory responsibility to organize, control, and direct the staffing as well as the process that happens over there. And she does not have office to do that. And I've talked to them a number of times about this. This is a very serious situation. Now, as far as as far as scanning, You know, when I first came here in 2005, I was told not to learn JD Edwards because we're getting a new system. Don't worry about it. It's 2023 and we still have JD Edwards. So we've been trying to scan. We have a number of files. And sure, someday we'll get to the point of being in the future, as Mr. Heath spoke of, but we're not there yet. Today, 2023, the clerk has a responsibility of maintaining and processing these records. There is no room for that. There's no room to keep these records. I mean, right now we're discussing where we put the records at. The judge keeps a number of boxes. I think our court administrator there can talk on all the files that's in that courtroom. There's no room for them to be there. So where they're gonna go? So that's where we're at, the situation.
Are we not digitizing records as we go along
Yeah,
to
but
keep from?
we have, I can't even explain to you when you talk about digitized.
Okay.
We're talking about years and years down the road. It's not something gonna happen in a week. Feel free to stop it if you could. Introduce yourself.
Yes, again, Tracy Gilbert for the clerk's office. Yes, we are in the process of digitizing. However, the Court of Appeals, they are allowing us to digitize the record and upload it and send it to them. The Supreme Court is not. So which means that when they request the record, we have to send them a paper file. Files consist of just a regular size file up to boxes. And we're talking cases that are being coming back from 1960s, 1970s. That's a lot of files. That's a lot of records. So are we digitizing? Yes, we are, as much as we possibly can.
You're saying the Supreme Court or the appeals court, which one are requiring paper records?
The Supreme Court is requiring paper records. The Court of Appeals are allowing us to digitize and upload and send to them.
Hold on just one second. I'm sort of surprised. I know someone, Joe was mentioning it is the same jurisdiction,
Court of Appeals?
Court of Appeals to Supreme.
Yeah, Court of Appeals request, we send it to them digitized. But when the Supreme Court requests the record, they want the paper file. They do not want a digitized copy.
And it can't be reproduced from the digital file.
We can, but then again,
They won't accept
we're
it?
maintaining paper.
Right, but, okay, I'm thinking if you digitize it, what we're maintaining is still digitized. And
Well,
what you would be sending the court would be a copy from the digitized file.
it doesn't necessarily mean that when the Court of Appeals requests the record and then the Supreme Court requests the record, sometimes the Court of Appeals could requested the record some time ago, but then the Supreme Court will come back and request the record and they just want us to send a paper file. So,
Maybe,
and again, and
okay.
keeping in mind, I didn't mean to cut you off,
No.
but we also do not have anything that says we can destroy the record once the file has been digitized. So we still mandated to maintain that record, paper file.
I think what's happened in other cases of the prosecutor's office and others, they're being cloud-based. So there's not any box with files in it once they're digitized. But I guess we need to have that discussion with James and see, James in his other life with the state, I know he's probably couldn't get an answer to that. I just sort of surprising, but I understand when you're dealing with the Supreme Court, they may have different rules and will not budge from those. But maybe we need to look at this a little deeper. James, I'm happy to see what, this location looks like with HQ. So we can be assured that everything is, because we're hearing two different sides. And I think it's very important for us to feel that our records are secure. Everyone's records are. Hold on, just go ahead, Mr. Commissioner Beto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you just mentioned, Commissioner Anderson, yeah, we all want our records to be safe. It's a little bit troubling to hear that HQ, where we have thousands of boxes, that it's not safe. I don't know if this is the right place to talk about this, Keith. Is this the case? Is it a safe facility?
Safe facility.
It is.
I agree with you, Commissioner Baydoun, that our conversation about the security and efficacy of HQ is in general somewhat beyond the scope of this subcommittee. And I would appreciate the opportunity to have the experts who know the most about HQ present to this body about the security measures which are in place there, about our history of being secure there, and why it has served us well, and what our plan going forward is. So I accept your suggestion that a more robust conversation with the appropriate actors who know the most about that facility is probably the best way for us to go.
We're definitely all interested in finding out about the safety of HQ and also what could be done to digitize all these thousands of boxes and what process and what's the cost. I mean, obviously, everybody is going digital. Also, so in the clerk's office, Mr. Seals, right now, with the amount of space that you also have boxes inside the clerk's office?
Through the chair, Commissioner Braden, yes, we have boxes. There's some boxes the judges want to stay right inside the courtroom. There is no room for that. Those boxes need to be moved someplace. We have boxes throughout. Again, this is just CJC. We think there's probably close to 11,000 boxes, which we are making room. As you know, the charter and the state statute says the clerk has the purview of those files. And we're just a side note, want to point out too, those boxes HQ is actually in violation of charter as well as state law. The clerk was not even aware that those 20, 30,000 boxes were even over there. And she walked over there. And I'll be more than glad she'll send you a letter explaining her situation there. I think it is very serious. There's files over there. And to sit and wait for a robust discussion about this, this is immediate danger here. And we'll send you a letter and we'll send you pictures of the situation. It's not something that is a jail, is locked up, secure, like a vault. You can walk in there very easily and get any file you want. I think when we send the pictures over to you, you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Again, we're talking about the CJC, but I don't want you to go away thinking that the HQ is okay. The clerk was not even aware these boxes were even there. I mean, that alone is in violation of county charter and state law.
Mr. Chair, can I respond, please? So listen, I think Dwayne and I agree that we can have a more robust conversation in another setting, but I just do have to respond. You know, I cannot speak to what the clerk knows about her statutory obligations or what she was aware of about what records were where. I don't know that, and so I'll take Dwayne at his Mr. Seals at face value with respect to what he claims the clerk didn't know. What I will tell you is that the clerk has been in litigation previously with the prior county executive after this commission a prior commission passed an ordinance with respect to records. The subject of that litigation to some extent had to do with HQ. And so whether the clerk didn't know at the time or didn't know now is not something that I can speak to. But I do take exception to the fact that, whether the clerk knew something about where records, which Mr. Seals would say come under the clerk's purview, whether she was aware of where they were actually being stored, that is not an indication of a violation of charter in and of itself. And so I just want to state that as attorney for this county, that is just not the case. But I agree, we are happy to have conversations with the clerk. We believe, as I think members of this commission do, that we ought to be using technology to the extent possible to manage our records. That is what the administration believes. That is what the criminal justice complex design calls for. That is what smart counties and places are doing all across the country. We would love to partner with the clerk in that regard. And I think there's an opportunity for us to do so. And we're happy to continue to negotiate and discuss that because I think that's what's best for the entire
Thank you,
county.
Keith. That's definitely another discussion to be had. But I want to go back to Mr. Seals. He mentioned that the clerk would like to have an office space in the new CJC. how many square feet is given to the clerk's office in that facility? Do we know how many offices they have?
I don't know the square footage of the space. Do you know?
No,
offhand,
but
Dwayne?
it's a lot smaller than what we're using now.
Sure, and we're not talking, and we're not doing anything with the clerk's office in KMAC right now either. So we're talking, I just want to be clear, we're talking about a second office,
Yeah, second
just so we're
office.
aware of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get you the square footage of the space that's been allocated to the county. That's a number that Dwayne and I will agree on. And go from there.
It sounds like Dwayne is,
It sounds like,
I guess the point is that I don't want to, as Mr. Heath mentioned, the clerk has a office at KMAC. We're going to have probably about 50 employees at KMAC. The issue is that it's at the CJC. She's going to have close to 100 employees at the CJC. So she needs an office there. I mean, as the citizens have elected her to control that operations over there, how can she not? And the fact is that I want to mention is that there is a spot, there is an area, but for some reason, they decided just to go in and take that area out and move it for a press conference. I don't know how many press conferences we have here in Wayne County, but that was actually the clerk's office they took out.
so a typical office for the clerk would be what? 15 by 15, 14 by 14? It's not a huge conference
Yeah.
room, right?
It's just a
Is
normal
that
size.
something,
Yeah,
Mr. Heath, is that something that could be accommodated?
Respectfully, I don't want to negotiate space at this podium. It's just, it would not be the responsible thing
Of
for me
course
to
not,
do.
but I mean, just
But I
for-
will say this, we are, we continue to be willing to discuss space issues and all of these issues we've been talking about for the last half an hour.
Mr. Chair,
with the clerk.
Mr. Chair.
What I'd propose is, I'll come to you, Commissioner, in just a minute. Dwayne, provide us with a copy of the issues that you have, that clerk's office has with the space that's being provided. And James, then we'll have you address those. And we'll take it offline and be able to address it that way. Otherwise, I can see this is not going to wind up very quickly.
I agree with you.
Commissioner Kenlock had his hand up first. I don't know if,
No, I agree
that-
with what you're saying,
Okay.
so I'm fine, yeah.
okay, Commissioner Marecki.
But I just have one quick question. How many hours a week would she be over in there?
The clerk, it's hard to say. I mean, she has 3 other buildings for it. Like, for example, this week she spent the whole week at 400 Monroe. So, I mean, when we talk about week, she may spend 2 weeks at CJC and then go someplace else. So, but she shares her time between KMAC, which probably to be less individuals there. So she may not be there as quite as much as she is now, though. But as more people move in as the CJC, I mean, I can see her spending time there. Again, she doesn't spend the 2 hours here, 3 hours there. She may spend 2 or 3 days there and then move on to one of her other offices.
If there's no other questions by commissioners, I think we'll resolve this or adjourn this meeting in a moment. But I wanted to make sure all the questions that were ready to be asked are asked. But I think we're at that point now that we can move on the agenda unless there's an objection. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I'm not aware of any that have been submitted.
Public comments.
Are there any public comments?
No emails have been received.
Anyone online indicated they wanted to ask a question or make a comment?
No hands are raised.
One more time, if there's anyone that's viewing this that wishes to be recognized, please let us know. Raise your hand. Seeing none. Next item on the agenda.
Adjournment.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, thanks. We're adjourned.